Talking all things entertainment, this is Sherri Pullum in the studio with Dreamers Unite. Join us behind the curtain with Broadway show producer Jeremy Lentz. Hey Dreamers, and welcome to Dreamers Unite in the studio. Yes, episode number 2. I am grateful to be here with you and with my very dear friend Jeremy Lentz. Now, many of you know him from the Teaneck International Film Festival, but many of you don't know that he is also a Broadway show producer. So today, with this in the studio, this is all about everything entertainment. So if you have a dream of becoming a Broadway show producer, or even a theatrical producer, or even a dream of theater, Broadway, here's a man that we're going to get some knowledge and information and just talk a little bit about his journey. Okay? So Jeremy, welcome to Dreamers Unite in the studio.
Sherri, it's so good to be here, as always.
It's always good talking to you.
Yeah, I love it. I love talking to you.
You too. I don't know, we might need our own show. It might be Sherri and Jeremy pretty soon.
I love it.
Yeah, we have so much fun. So listen, I want to talk about you right now and focusing on you as a Broadway show producer. This is like your official debut as a co-producer. First of all, let me say congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is so huge. And that's why I think it's important to talk about your journey, as people out there and in our community are, they have this seed of maybe one day I want to be a Broadway show producer or a theatrical producer, and they don't know where to even start. So let's just talk a little bit about the show that you are producing.
Ohio State Murder at the James Earl Jones Theater, the first show in history at that theater, which has just been rededicated. James Earl Jones is 91 years old, as is the playwright of our show, Audra Kennedy,
yes,
who is making her Broadway debut. 91-year-old African-American living playwright getting her shot on Broadway with Ohio State Murders.
Wow, you see that just shows never, ever, ever give up on your dream.
Absolutely. If you can't do it at 30, you do it at 40. And if not 40, 50. If not 70, 80, 90.
100. If you're so blessed to live that long. Really, I think as long as you have, the point is, as long as you have breath in your body, living your dream, your purpose, your calling, whatever that is, that vision, whatever that is, it's important to do it. You never give up on you. So we have a couple of pictures back here. This is opening night. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, well, I'm co-producing with my best friend, my favorite #1 diva, Mrs. Howard in Abbott Elementary. Cheryl Lee Ralph came in from LA.
The Dream Girl original herself.
Dream Girl, her show, who is now, I have the privilege of being co-producer on this production with her. And, things are kismet, right? This show literally fell into my lap. And I read this script and was just shocked that I never knew who this playwright was. One of America's most lauded playwrights who had never been exhibited on Broadway. I read the script. I immediately was just so enthralled by this story, which is haunting and captivating. And I called Cheryl and I said, you have to read this play. It is remarkable. And Cheryl read this play and she said, this is Broadway. We're doing this. And
wow.
That's how it happened.
Wow. So how did you even get interested in producing a Broadway show?
So let's go all the way back.
Take us back.
All the way back. I'm a little kid, right? As a kid, growing up, you don't always know what you want to do, but I knew what I loved. I knew what I loved. I knew what I didn't like. I wasn't a math and science kind of kid. I loved reading. I loved film. I loved plays. I loved the arts in general, anything that was creative. And my world, for me, growing up in the suburbs of New York City, was Broadway. It was theater. It was my escape. Because growing up as a teen, coming out in the early 90s wasn't so easy. So I would kind of escape the suburbs and signed up to be a volunteer usher on Broadway and off Broadway. They had various different programs through some of the nonprofit theaters, which I think they still may even have. The Roundabout Theater had a big volunteer usher program, and I would just go in and I get to see shows for free, and I get to just immerse myself in this whole other world. And it was great because it was like my little escape. But that world was so important, and that community was something that just was so deep in terms of how it impacted me. And I felt I learned so much, and I was just in awe of everything that I saw on the stage, from plays to musicals. And I was like, if I could do something in this world, this is what I want to do. But I knew I wasn't really cut out for acting, and it wasn't really my thing. So I didn't really know how to cultivate it, but I knew the things that I liked. So, I went on to college, became an English major, and my career just kind of evolved on its own, which has, led me to this day where one of my biggest dreams is realized on Broadway with Audra Mcdonald and Shirley Ralph in Ohio State Murders. So talk about a blessing. It's going to be a bigger blessing for me.
Oh, that is a huge blessing. I mean, really, your first debut, Audra Mcdonald.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, do you sometimes have to pinch yourself?
So there's a story. I'm going to tell you a personal story. So when I was growing up, my grandmother was the one who exposed me to theater. So I would spend my summers in Brooklyn, and one of the big things that we would do in the summertime would be to ride the subway and go to Duffy Square and get a TKTS 50% off ticket, right? And we would brown bag a lunch, and we would go to see a show. And that particular summer, we got a ticket to go to Lincoln Center and see Carousel, which was Audra Mcdonald's Broadway debut. And I remember seeing that show and being so captivated by her performance. And I wrote her a letter, as a kid. And I just wrote what that performance meant to me, and taking the subway with Grandma to New York, and just thanked her. And a couple of weeks later, I got a letter back, but a full letter. Like, when you write on a card and you write one page and there's not enough room, so you got to flip it over. One of those letters. And it was a whole letter from Audra about what that letter meant to her, and how she got that card on a bad day and it cheered her up, and she thanked me. And in that letter, she said, maybe one day I'll see you on Broadway. So when this opportunity came about, talk about chills, but
I have chills. I just had to do that because I'm like, you see the little goosebumps.
But as a kid, and you get something like that, it means the world to you, right? So I kept that letter and I framed it and I put it on my desk. And as I grew up, I always took it with me to college, to my first job. And I've always kept those letters of inspiration on my desk, and they serve as motivation. And when the opportunity came about with Ohio State and I heard Audra was going to be involved, I said, well, this has got to happen. And having Cheryl, the original dream girl, with that, and my buddy Mark Levine, who brought me into the world of theatrical investing, it was all really, really kismet. And when we had our first meet and greet during rehearsals, I brought that letter and I showed it to Audra, and I just said, can you just read this? And she starts reading it, and she looks at it and she says, well, that's my handwriting. I definitely wrote this. And she's reading the letter, and I said to her, dreams do come true, because I was that kid that you wrote that letter to when you were in Carousel. And look at us now.
Look at you now. Okay, we want to put up a picture of the two of you together.
Yeah, so that was the day.
Was that the day that she read
the meet and greet that she read the letter?
Yeah. That is amazing. You can't even make that up. You really dreaming, holding that in your heart, and just keeping that. That's amazing, Jeremy. That is manifesting.
You know that there's that little voice, and we always talk about that little voice deep down. But you know, listen, I don't necessarily know how I'm going to get there. I don't know the road that I'm going to take, but I know if I continue walking on that road, doing what I'm doing, I'm going to get there.
Okay, Jeremy, here's a nugget moment. I don't know the road I'm going to take. I don't know how long it's going to take. But I know if I keep walking that journey, what?
It's going to happen.
Nugget. Boom. Dreamers, listen. I have to catch as many nuggets as I can for you, because that is golden right there. That is a huge testimony, really. And I did not know that story at all. That is beautiful. Yeah. And here you are now with your childhood dream that has happened. And I just don't think it could be a better person happening to.
Thank you.
You're so deserving of it too, Jeremy. So tell me a little bit about, you talked about Mark Levine. You did produce, or as an investor.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about that with Tina.
Yeah.
Which I love that play. I saw that, by the way.
Yeah. So it all started as far as like my professional involvement with Broadway really started because of Mark Levine, who's, you know, a friend and as well a mentor who's helped to teach me what this business is about. Mm-hmm. Show business is a crazy business, you know, and people tend to forget it's a business. But during my work with the film festival, Mark had approached me with some business opportunities about coming on as an investor. So the first show that I actually worked on Broadway that Mark brought me into was Dangerous Liaisons.
Oh.
And it was a revival with Liev Schreiber from Ray Donovan and Janet McTeer, who's super accomplished stage actress. And that, you know, has just segued into other shows, one of which was Tina on Broadway, which is now on, just had its 100th performance of its U.S. national tour.
Wow.
And I'm proud, really proud to be a part of that show. And
yeah,
you know,
I saw that show. It was fantastic. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a fun show. And anybody that knows Tina's story and her music, you know what you're signing up for when you go to see Tina.
Yeah, you'd almost have to be under a rock to not know.
Yeah. So that brought me into this world.
Yeah, that's exciting. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, you're still kind of a newcomer into this game in a way, but you're not really. You're learning as you go along. But tell us a little bit about that path to perhaps, you know, you had your interest in a dream as a young child. But how did that happen? What kind of relationships do you need to have in order to really start producing sort of on a Broadway show level, so to speak?
There's so many elements to that, you know, from finding the right vehicle, right?
Okay.
The first part is, you know, you need the content. And then from there, you need to raise money. And that's really, you know, what a producer does is work to secure the financing for the show so that you can mount a production. Mm-hmm. And then you need to get the show out there, and you got to hire cast and directors, and, you know, it's a machine. So you have so many people working on the different intricacies of the show. But, you know, as far as what I've done, the work that I've done through the film festival, as far as producing content and bringing in, you know, creatives and working in that level, really segued into the world of Broadway producing. And whether you're producing a film or you're producing a Broadway show, you know, there's a lot of different, or a lot of parallels, really, with the kind of creatives that you work with.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's really about taking different aspects and putting it together. As I was saying, my first guest, Ashley McFarland, and she's a television producer. Mm-hmm. And that's what she talked about. You know, it's really creating something from nothing. It really is about creating and bringing different aspects and pieces together to put together this project to make it work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is wonderful. So what, I don't want to say advice, but I'll say an offering. Could you give someone in our Dreamers community, if they're interested in maybe just starting out, because there's obviously stages that you have to go through, right? And there's miracles every day, right? That it could happen sooner rather than later, but maybe people starting to get interested in their regional theater or community theater, or, how do you take those steps to start understanding all aspects of theater and really kind of knowing maybe I could be a producer.
Right.
Would that be a good first start? And then tell us what in your sort of walk, an offering that you could give someone if they're interested.
Yeah.
What could they do?
Well, I think there's so many different paths that can lead you to producing, right? There's not a standard template, right? Because you have producers that are coming from all different walks of life and all different careers. But I think for those out there that are more of the creatives, that are your actors, that are your playwrights, your directors, obviously you need to immerse yourself in all of it. You need to make that world. You need to study it. You need to be able to kind of learn every component of the business and then figure out what aspects of it you want to do. So if, you're an actor, obviously it's, getting that training and getting yourself out there. If you're working in a producing realm, it's really learning the back end of the business and what that involves and how to do that. So I think, you just have to stick with things. And I think that's what people forget. It's easy to get discouraged in entertainment in general, because until you get so many no's until you get a yes. But if you stick with things, and I've always kind of really learned that in life, if you stick with things, it'll eventually happen. And you have to believe in yourself, and you have to, always follow that voice.
Yeah, stick another nugget. Okay. Sticking with things,
Don't give up.
Don't give up and follow your inner voice.
Right.
No matter what.
No matter what, no matter how many doors are closed on you, no matter how many no's you get. Yeah. You just need that one time where that door is open a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's all it could take.
Yeah, that's all it takes. Okay. Dreamers, listen. There's so much wisdom here. Once again, you come here, Jeremy, throwing out these nuggets.
That's the other thing. Yeah. You have to show up. When there are opportunities that present themselves, you need to take advantage of them. And not everybody does that.
Well, yeah, you have to show up for yourself. And that's what you did. Like, this opportunity came for you and you didn't sleep on it. You showed up and you did it. And you take a chance. Well, listen, I'm producing anything in entertainment, anything in the world, really. You're taking a risk. It's a risk.
You have to
just walking out your door is a risk. You never know what's going to happen to you. Yeah.
But what I was saying was, to produce something, you have to believe in the work. You have to love it, and that's the angle that I've always come from in anything that I've ever invested in or I've ever worked in as far as theater. I don't look at it necessarily from the business component, although sometimes you have to. But what I see is, if this is a work that I believe in, this is something that I want to do. And a story like this, like Ohio State Murders, needs to be told. So we are breaking ground. We're breaking history on Broadway. And I need to be a part of that. So that's just how it came about. And to those who are out there who have that piece, that work that they know is going to change the trajectory of things, keep sticking with it. Don't give up on your dreams. It's the perseverance, and we talked about that last time on the show. Perseverance, integrity, and just keep going.
And just keep going. Don't give up, and keep dreaming. And when you accomplish that one thing, there's another dream always that you can certainly keep reaching for the high bar, and you will catch it. All right, Jeremy, you know this is Dreamers Unite. So listen, we have to play a dream game. Last time when we did our special on the Teaneck International Film Festival, we played Name It, Claim It, Own It. Now we are going to, it's not the same kind of, we also played Name It, Claim It, Own It, but we also played How Well Do You Know Your Festival?
Yes, and you scared me with that because I almost failed.
No, and you did not. Far from failed. No, you did not. Well, we are going to play How Well Really Do You Know Yourself and Your Dream?
Okay.
That's really what this is about. So you talked a little bit about what your childhood dream was. So that was really my first, so you talked about it really being, you wanted to be involved in theater somehow. So you're living that. Anything you want to add to that? What was your childhood dream before I move on to the next question?
I'm living it. You said it.
Okay, that's perfect. So what would you do, or what have you done? What has been like the ultimate sacrifice that you would do or that you have done to reach a dream or a goal?
That's a good question. That's a deep question. The ultimate sacrifice that you would do or have done.
And this entertainment industry, people make some great sacrifices. Some good, some not so good, but we don't judge here. So you can tell us the truth,
but I want to give
Jeremy.
you something juicy, but I don't know,
What would be your ultimate sacrifice, or what do you think you have done? Have you made an ultimate sacrifice yet?
I don't know if I made an ultimate sacrifice.
So what would that be?
Because an ultimate sacrifice, that's
a big one.
That's pretty big.
It is big.
For me, it's more of, uprooting yourself, coming back to live in certain places. Like for me, I knew I needed to be in New York because that's where my world was. That's where my world would be. And I think when you have family and, your work could be someplace else, whether it's, in London for theater or in LA, if you're working in film or other TV, I think, where you are can be a major sacrifice, but I don't know. I got to give you something juicier than that, though.
Yeah, we need something juicy, Jeremy. What would you do?
Something juicy. I think you do what is needed to get to where you need to do, but you got to do it with integrity. You got to do it with integrity, and you got to do it the right way.
Well, that's what I expected. You would say something with integrity and doing it the right way, Jeremy. That's a good way to do it. Yeah. I think no matter what sacrifice you would make, I think, sticking to who you are and really knowing who you are so that way you know your values.
Right? For me, that's not a sacrifice.
Well, I think it can be a sacrifice. Even though that you know who you are, you can still make a huge sacrifice in
compromising who you are for somebody else.
Yeah. Or or whatever it is that you would do to make that dream come true for yourself. You know what I mean? What would you let go of, or what would you want to make that dream come true?
Well, I think I could talk to you openly about something now. I think relationships, if you really want to be candid, I think just as far as, the person that you are with in my world didn't necessarily, align with where I was going. And the sacrifice was that we would be better off apart than together, because that's where the relationship was going. Rather than, trying to make something work that just wasn't working because we weren't on the same track. And that could be a hard thing to do.
That is a big sacrifice. Many people have said they've given up their families, not intentionally so, but like you said, when you're not on the same path and you're not necessarily in alignment, then it can cause a lot of hurt on both sides. So Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's brave.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the greatest challenge you overcame? And then how did you get through it?
Wow. You're asking all the deep
Yes.
questions.
Well, we've got to really inspire. We've got to get to these dreamers out here who, listen, at the end of the day, life is challenging and we all need to be inspired in ways that we can see ourselves through someone else.
Well, I think the greatest challenge for me was truly accepting who I was, coming out, being a proud gay man and loving yourself and learning how to love yourself and learning how to be true to yourself and know that if you're able to do that, and I don't take for granted, I had so many people that supported me along the way, which helped and makes all the difference. But I think that is a challenge, especially as you're a young person growing into your adulthood, figuring out where you fit in and where you belong on that was probably the hardest challenge, getting to the place where I am now. And I feel that I am so much better in terms of who I am in my 40s than I was in my teens, in my 20s, even in my 30s. I like where I am now and who I am now because I understand who I am.
Well, that's beautiful. So the last question, what would you like to do that you have not done
Everything.
because
There's
of,
so much.
wait,
Okay,
because of fear? What has stopped you in your tracks that you would like to do, but you have not done because of fear?
I think everybody always says fear of, you always have self-doubt. But I think at this point in my life, I just think you go there. I think the biggest thing is sometimes you have to step away from things that aren't serving you anymore to allow yourself the time to go after those things that you really want to do. So I think my biggest fear is just the change, the shift. And am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to survive? Am I going to be able to thrive? And that I really think is the hardest part, because when you have a certain sense of security and you're kind of going out there into the unknown, not knowing how it's all going to play out, if it's going to play out, you're in these uncharted waters.
Yeah.
So
what would you like to do that you have not done?
There are so many plans.
So give me something. Give us something.
So write.
What do you want to write specifically?
Write shows, stories. So everything that we do, like on Broadway and at the film festival level, there's just so much content.
So maybe you have some of that in my dream box.
Just that, all that production company that is able to be a vessel for all these stories to amplify voices. That's the goal. That's the vision. Nice. And
have you been a little stuck because you've been a little afraid of that?
I think, well, it's time, and it's the obligation of letting the other things go. So, and it's this shift of that security, and are you gonna make it in navigating the waters where you'll be okay. But
I understand that
we're a work in progress, and we're always a work in progress, and it's baby steps. But as you learn, the layers come back.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for sharing a piece of yourself and playing the dream game. You know your dream and you know yourself. So that's also important. And you know what I loved hearing is that you love yourself. Because that is the most important thing. Oh my goodness. If there's anything we both can encourage people is to love on yourself through thick and thin, and offer yourself grace and forgiveness. You do not have to be perfect. You know what I mean? You loving yourself is important. Yeah. So I love that.
It's the key to everything.
It is the key to everything, for sure. So we have our next segment. We're going to move into, we have a couple of callers who are anxious to ask you a couple of questions. You up for it?
I'm up for it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, Jeremy. So we have a caller on the line for you, and her name is Cassandra. Okay, so Cassandra, hi. How are you? Thanks for calling into our show.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. So I'm here with Jeremy, and what question do you have for him?
So, hi, Jeremy. As a producer, I am sure that you have the opportunity to, put your name behind a lot of different shows. What was it about Ohio State Murder that made you say, this is the show, this is the one?
That's a great question. And hi, Cassandra.
Hi.
Good to hear your voice.
Thanks, you too.
It was so easy. You know when things come to you and they're just right. And this was a piece about making history and about telling an incredible story for the first time on Broadway, and a story that had to be told, that needs to be told, that should have been told decades ago. But it's never too late, and we are telling that story now.
Beautiful. And it is a wonderful, wonderful play. Very hauntingly beautiful.
Well, Cassandra, thank you so much for your time. Jeremy, thank you so much. You did such a great job with that first caller. We have another caller standing by for you. Hi, Cameron.
Hi.
You have a question for Jeremy, correct?
Yes. First and foremost, I wanted to say congratulations on your Broadway debut. I'm currently a senior at the University of Richmond, majoring in media studies, and whenever I'm working on a project or doing something for my internship, I always consider how the audience will perceive the story. So I was curious to know, what do you hope that the audience will take away from the story that you're telling in the play?
Wow. Well, first of all, hi, Cameron. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you so much for those words, and thank you for calling in. That's a great question. This is a play that's going to captivate audiences, and I think one of the things that this play does, and it does so well, is it sparks conversation. It sparks conversation about race, it sparks conversation about identity, and it sparks a conversation about a history and a time in this country where things could not be discussed openly in the forefront and things were swept under the rug. And we are now at a point in our cultural history that we are having the difficult conversations and starting to talk about the things that were not talked about 40, 50, 60 plus years ago. And I think when audiences see this show, the one takeaway that everyone needs from this show is a time to actually sit down and discuss.
Jeremy, thank you so much. You did a great job with these guests, or the people who called in, I should say. And I want to thank you again, always, for your time, for your inspiration, for your nuggets. I always catch so many with Jeremy. And just for just being the person that you are, like a loving, talented, sweet, kind, warm spirit. You're
that.
Always that, no matter what role you're playing, whether it's the executive director of the Teaneck International Film Festival. We'll be back covering more of that with you for sure. Or it's, Broadway, whatever. I'm always going to be in your corner for sure.
Well, I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed to have the best people in my corner and in my life. So thank you for supporting and for you doing this and you being you.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, dreamers, it means that it is time for us to come to a close, but you know what I'm going to say. Please support us, subscribe, give us your comments, your feedback. We need it, right, Jeremy? It's important. We want to keep helping you grow, learn, and giving you those tools that you need to really help your dreams manifest and come true. So, Jeremy, today we talked about Broadway show producing. So I hope that he inspired you, answered a lot of questions, and hopefully, if anything, showed you that dreams really do come true.
Amen to that.
Yeah. And that's it for us this time. I'll see you again next time right here in the studio.